Hello students. So let's continue with the NCERT chapter 8, which is aldehyde, ketones and carboxylic acid. So today is the theory part 3. So the sections which we will cover today is from 8.4 to 8.4.2. This is the disclaimer. So what is the objective of today's lecture? After attending this lecture, you will be able to understand the topics which we are going to cover today. So today we will describe the chemical reactions of aldehydes and ketones. And we will explain the mechanism of few selected reactions of aldehydes and ketones. Now for your reference, I have mapped the NCERT sections that we are going to cover today. So we will be covering section 8.4, which is chemical reactions, 8.4.1, which is nucleophilic addition reactions, 8.4.2, which is reduction, and then we will summarize whatever we have studied in today's lecture. Okay, so let's begin with today's lecture. So first we will start with nucleophilic addition reactions. Now we all know that aldehydes and ketones, they have a presence of a carbonyl group, right? Now because of the carbonyl group, the carbon in the carbonyl group is electron deficient. Being it electron deficient, it is the prime target for nucleophiles. Nucleophiles which are electron rich species. So aldehydes and ketones undergo nucleophilic addition reactions. As I told you, the carbonyl carbon is electron deficient. Why? Because the oxygen atom pulls electrons towards itself, which creates a partial positive charge on the carbon. Because oxygen is more electronegative, so it pulls the electrons towards itself. So it creates a partial positive charge on the carbon. And this makes it susceptible to attack by nucleophiles, which are electron-rich species. So the carbon of carbonyl carbon is electron deficient. So it creates a partial positive charge. Now let's look towards the mechanism. Now, when a nucleophile attacks a carbonyl carbon, it does so to form a direction which is approximately perpendicular to the plane of the carbonyl group. Okay, so the direction is in the way that it is approximately perpendicular to the plane of carbonyl group. Now this is because the carbonyl group is an sp2 hybridized state. Okay, as I told you that it is carbonyl group is an sp2 hybridized state which forms a planar structure. Means everything is in plane. Okay. So if you see this planar structure in the diagram, you will see over here this is a carbonyl group which is in plane. So a nucleophile, it comes and attacks perpendicular to the plane of the carbonyl group. So see, it will attack like this. This plane is perpendicular. Okay. You can understand it more easily, like think of a flat piece of paper. Okay. You have a flat piece of paper where the nucleophile can come in from above or below. Okay, so it can either come from above or below. So it will give you a better understanding. So nucleophile will attack the carbonyl carbon from the approximately perpendicular to the sp2 plane. Okay. So this is the first step where the nucleophile attaches. It is the slow step. Okay, and the slow step is your RDS, which is rate determining step. Now you see in second diagram, it forms an intermediate, which is tetrahedral intermediate. So nucleophile gets attached to this carbonyl carbon. Okay. Now what happens? As the nucleophile attacks, the hybridization of the carbon changes from sp2 to sp3. If you look over here, students, the hybridization of the carbon is sp2 over here. But when the nucleophile attaches, the hybridization of carbon changes from sp2 to sp3. This means that the carbon goes from a flat planar shape to a more 3D dimensional, which is a tetrahedral shape. So now it is a tetrahedral intermediate. So it forms a tetrahedral alkoxide intermediate. So this intermediate is a temporary structure where the nucleophile is bonded to the carbon and the oxygen has a negative charge. As you see, this electrons goes towards the oxygen as the nucleophile attacks. So the oxygen has a negative charge. Now, the tetrahedral intermediate, it captures a proton to form a final addition product. Okay, so it will capture one proton. So you will see this is your final addition product. So this step stabilizes the intermediate and results in a neutral molecule. Okay, so this is how we saw mechanism that how the nucleophile attacks to your carbonyl carbon. You get a tetrahedral intermediate and then it accepts one proton and it gives you an addition product. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now we will talk about the reactivity of aldehydes and ketones. So if I talk about the reactivity, then aldehydes, they are generally more reactive than ketones. Why? Can you think of the reason? Why is it so? See, the reason is quite simple. This is because the aldehyde, they have only one alkyl group which is attached to the carbonyl carbon. As we have discussed the structure of aldehyde, there is a carbonyl carbon. One side of the carbon, they can be alkyl or aryl group or hydrogen, and other side also there is one hydrogen. So the aldehyde, they have only one alkyl group which is attached to the carbonyl carbon. So it make it more accessible for the nucleophiles. Okay, so now we will one by one see the reasons. First is the steric reason. Okay, so ketones, they have two large alkyl groups attached to the carbonyl carbon. And we all know that ketone, there is a carbonyl carbon and both sides it is attached with an alkyl group. So because of these two large alkyl groups, it make it harder for the nucleophile to approach and react with the carbonyl carbon. So one of the reason is the steric hindrance. The second reason involves the electronic effects. Now ketones, they have two alkyl groups that donate the electrons to the carbonyl carbon. We all know that alkyl group has plus I effect. So they donate the electrons to the carbonyl carbon, which reduces its positive charge and make it less attractive to nucleophiles. Because now carbon will not be that electrophilic because the alkyl groups, they are donating the electron density. So it will reduce its positive charge and make it less attractive to the nucleophiles. And the reason is given, this is because of the plus I effect of the alkyl groups. Okay, this is known as the inductive effect, where the electron donating groups, they decreases the electrophilicity. So in ketone, we have two alkyl groups which reduces the reactivity of the carbonyl carbon compared to aldehydes. And in aldehydes, we have only one alkyl group. So if you look at this diagram, students, you can visualize it more clearly. So you have an aldehyde and you have a ketone. Okay, imagine the carbonyl carbon in a ketone is being shielded by two electron clouds because there are two R groups. Okay, so they are shielded by this carbonyl carbon of your ketone. It is shielded by two electron clouds. So this shielding make it less likely for nucleophile to attack the carbonyl carbon because of this steric hindrance factor. Thus, it reduces the reactivity of ketones as compared to aldehydes. Okay, so I hope the reasons are clear that why aldehydes are generally more reactive than ketones because of steric reasons and electronic reasons. Now we will discuss the reactivity of aromatic and aliphatic aldehydes. So aromatic aldehydes, they are less reactive than aliphatic aldehydes. So if I talk about aromatic aldehydes like benzaldehyde, they are less reactive than aliphatic one such as formaldehyde. So this difference in the reactivity is because of the structure. So let us see the reasons. First is in aromatic aldehydes, the phenyl ring, it can share its electron density with the carbonyl group through resonance. And this sharing, it reduces the reactivity of the carbonyl group, because we have a phenyl ring and it can share its electron density with the carbonyl group. Okay, and this sharing, it reduces the reactivity. Now see the oxygen of the carbonyl carbon, it pulls the electrons because it is more electronegative. But at the same time, the benzene pushes the electron density towards the carbonyl carbon. So the positive charge on the carbon of C double bond O, or the positive charge on the carbon of carbonyl group, it gets reduced. So the carbon becomes less electrophilic. Okay, so at one time the oxygen is pulling the electron density, at the other time the benzene ring is pushing the electron density to the carbonyl group. So the positive charge on the carbon gets reduced. Okay, if you see the resonating structures, then you will see that this benzene ring, it is pushing the electron density towards the carbonyl group. So resonance, it decreases the positive charge on the electrophilic carbonyl carbon. So the nucleophiles find it harder to attack the carbonyl carbon in aromatic aldehydes. So that is why they are less reactive, because the electrophilicity of the carbon decreases. So nucleophile finds it harder to attack the carbonyl carbon. So if I talk about aliphatic aldehydes, they don't have this resonance effect. So without the electron donating phenyl ring, the carbonyl carbon, they remain more positive and reactive in case of aliphatic aldehydes. And this increased reactivity in aliphatic aldehyde make them more susceptible to nucleophilic addition reactions. Okay, I hope this is clear now. Okay. Now let's move to the next part. Now we will see the examples of nucleophilic reactions. First is the addition of hydrogen cyanide. So one by one we will discuss all of these nucleophilic addition reactions. First is the addition of hydrogen cyanide or HCN. So this reaction involves a nucleophile, and that nucleophile is a cyanide ion which attacks the carbonyl carbon of aldehydes and ketones. And it forms a compound which is known as cyanohydrins. Okay, we will discuss about this in more detail. Next is the addition of sodium hydrogen sulfide. So the sodium hydrogen sulfide, it adds to the carbonyl group, forming a bisulfite adduct. Okay. Next is the addition of Grignard reagents. Next is the addition of alcohols. So the addition of alcohols to aldehydes and ketones, they form hemiacetals and acetals. Now what are hemiacetals and acetals? We are going to discuss in upcoming slides. Next is the addition of ammonia and its derivative. So this reaction is crucial for forming imines or imine related compound. Now we will discuss one by one all these reactions. First is the addition of hydrogen cyanide. So, hydrogen cyanide or HCN, these reactions, they form compounds known as cyanohydrins. So, when aldehydes or ketones, they react with HCN, they form cyanohydrins. Now, if you look at this particular reaction, you will see there is aldehyde. If the R dash group is H, we can call it as aldehyde. Okay, and where R dash is equal to alkyl or aryl group, we can call it as a ketone. When it reacts with hydrogen cyanide, which is HCN, in presence of a base, you see it forms a cyanohydrin. That is the CN, it gets attached to this carbon. Okay, and the hybridization from sp2 is changing to sp3. Okay, so nucleophile gets attached to this carbon. Now we will look at the mechanism that how is this happening. So the mechanism of this reaction, it is base catalyzed. So if I talk the nature about HCN, then HCN is a weak acid. This means a base can help speed up the reaction by generating a cyanide ion, which is Cn minus. So a base helps you to generate cyanide ion from HCN, which is hydrogen cyanide. Now look at this reaction. the cyanide ion, which is Cn minus. First, you see that HCN, when it reacts with the base, you get a cyanide ion, which is Cn minus, plus water is released. Now, the cyanide ion is highly nucleophilic. Now, what will this highly nucleophilic cyanide ion do? Now, it loves to attack the positive center. So, where will it see the positive center? Obviously, that will be the carbon of the carbonyl group. So, the target of this nucleophile, it targets the carbon in the carbonyl group, which is slightly positive due to the oxygen pulling electrons away. So, if you see the red figure of this carbonyl group, you will see the carbon is positively charged and oxygen is negatively charged. It has a slight positive charge and oxygen has a slight negative charge. So this nucleophile will attack on this carbonyl carbon. So when the cyanide Cn minus, it adds to the carbonyl group, the double bond electrons shift to the oxygen. So the oxygen gets a negative charge. So if you see towards the tetrahedral intermediate, you get an intermediate which is formed, which is known as alkoxide ion. So over there you will see that oxygen gets a negative charge. And the negative charge oxygen picks up the proton and it forms a new bond resulting in cyanohydrin. So final product which you get is cyanohydrin. So I hope the steps are clear. First, HCN reacts with base, it forms a cyanide ion. Then this cyanide ion, being a nucleophilic, attacks the electrophilic center, which is the carbon of the carbonyl group. It forms a tetrahedral intermediate where the oxygen is negatively charged, and then this negative charged oxygen picks up a proton and forms a new bond which results in cyanohydrin. So the Cn adds to the carbonyl group forming cyanohydrin. Now we will see towards the next nucleophilic addition reaction, which is addition of sodium hydrogen sulfide or NaHSO3. So in this reaction, a nucleophile, which is an electron-rich species, which is sodium hydrogen sulfide in this case, it attacks the electrophilic carbon in the carbonyl group. So when NaHSO3, it adds to the carbonyl group, it forms a bisulfide addition compound. Now look at this particular reaction. So sodium bisulfide, it gives HSO3 minus ion in solution. Okay. So the sulfur atom in HSO3 minus, it has a lone pair. Now imagine if sulfur has a lone pair, where it will attack? It will attack the carbonyl carbon. So when this HSO3 minus attacks the carbonyl carbon, the double bond electrons move towards the oxygen and oxygen gets a negative charge. An intermediate is formed, that is a negatively charged oxygen, and SO3H group gets attached to the carbon. Okay, and then this negatively charged oxygen picks up a proton from SO3 minus, and at the same time the sodium balances the negative charge on SO3 minus. Okay, so if you look at this particular reaction, you have an aldehyde and you have a NaHSO3, which is sodium hydrogen sulfide. So it gives HSO3 minus ion in solution. So this will attack the carbonyl carbon and oxygen gets a negative charge and OSO2H or SO3H groups gets attached. And Na being positively charged gets attached to this oxygen. And then there is proton transfer from this SO3H. So this proton gets transferred and this becomes OH, and to balance this negative charge on SO3, Na gets attached. So you get bisulfide addition compound. So the resulting bisulfide addition product is crystalline and water soluble, which makes it easy to handle and purify. Now this property, it is useful in industrial applications where separation and purification of compounds are necessary. Now, as I told you the mechanism, now one by one we will look towards the mechanism. It will give you a more clear picture. So let's start with the addition of sodium hydrogen sulfide or NaHSO3. So this is a specific type of nucleophile addition reaction where HSO3 minus acts as a nucleophile. So look at this given diagram. So sodium bisulfite give HSO3 minus ion in solution. Okay. So this gives Na plus and SO3 minus. Now HSO3 minus being a nucleophile will attack on this carbonyl carbon. Now when this will attack, the electron density will shift towards the oxygen and oxygen gets a negative charge. And there OSO2H or SO3H gets attached. And this oxygen being negative charge, sodium gets attached. And then there is proton transfer. So the proton from SO3H gets transferred to this Na, so this becomes OH, and to balance this negative charge of here, the Na gets attached to OSO2. So you get OSO2Na and OH. So this is a bisulfite addition compound. Now the equilibrium tends to favor the formation of products when dealing with most of the aldehydes. I repeat, it is important that the equilibrium, it tends to favor the formation of products when you are dealing with most aldehydes. However, when I talk about the ketone, the equilibrium often favors the reactants. Why? Because of the steric hindrance and electronic factors that influence the stability. Okay, as we discussed that aldehydes, they are more reactive. Because in ketones, there is steric hindrance and electronic factors. So equilibrium favor the formation of products when you are dealing with aldehydes, and the ketones, the equilibrium often favors the reactants. Okay, so the reason is clear, because aldehydes generally have less steric hindrance compared to ketones, which make it easier for the nucleophile to attack. And on ketone, we know we have bulkier groups. So it is more challenging for nucleophile to attack on the ketone. So if you need to regenerate the original reactants, you can treat the products with dilute mineral acid or alkali. Okay, so reactants can be regenerated if you treat it with dilute mineral acid or alkali. Now this reaction is particularly useful for the separation and purification of aldehydes. Okay, so in industrial settings, this can be crucial for producing pure compounds, which are needed for pharmaceuticals or for fragrances. Now we will talk about third type of reaction, which is addition of Grignard reagents. Now if we talk about Grignard reagents, they are organomagnesium compounds that are represented as RMgX. So R is an organic group and X is a halogen. Now the strength of Grignard reagent as nucleophiles, it basically comes from the highly polar bond between the carbon and magnesium. Okay, so this polarity makes the carbon atom electron rich, allowing it to attack the electrophilic centers. And what will be the electrophilic centers? They will be the carbonyl carbon in aldehydes and ketones. Okay, so because of the presence of highly polar bond between carbon and magnesium, carbon becomes electron rich and it attacks the electrophilic centers. So because of this polar bond, the release of alkyl group from the Grignard reagent becomes easier. Okay, so the alkyl group can leave easily because of this high polar bond. Now Grignard reagent, they react with aldehydes and ketones to form alcohols. So this reaction is an example of a nucleophilic addition, where the nucleophile adds to the carbonyl carbon, resulting in the formation of a new carbon-carbon bond and an alcohol. So different Grignard reagents and carbonyl compounds, they lead to different alcohols. Okay, for example, if I give you a Grignard reagent with formaldehyde, if you treat Grignard reagent with formaldehyde, it will yield a primary alcohol. While you react it with other aldehydes other than formaldehyde or other ketones, it will yield secondary or tertiary alcohols. Okay, one by one we will look towards it. So if you see this, it is methanol, which is a formaldehyde. When you react it with Grignard reagent, which is RMgX, you get an alkoxide intermediate. And when you further treat it with water, you get a primary alcohol. Because formaldehyde, when you react formaldehyde with Grignard reagent, you get a primary alcohol. Okay, we will discuss this mechanism in upcoming slide. And if you react an aldehyde, this is methanol, which is formaldehyde. But when you react aldehyde other than formaldehyde, if you react any aldehyde with RMGX or Grignard reagent, you will get a secondary alcohol. So now here you need to remember, if you are reacting methanol with with Grignard reagent, you get a primary alcohol. But if you are treating any other aldehyde other than methanol or formaldehyde, you will get a secondary alcohol. How this is a secondary alcohol? Because the carbon to which your OH group is bonded is further connected by 2 carbon atoms. See, it is connected by R and R dash. So this is a secondary alcohol. Similarly, if you react a ketone with Grignard reagent, you get a tertiary alcohol. Tertiary alcohol, the carbon to which your OH group is attached is further connected by 3 carbon atoms. Okay, so if you react methanol with Grignard reagent, you get primary alcohol. Other than methanol, if you react any aldehyde with Grignard reagent, you get a secondary alcohol. And if you react a ketone with Grignard reagent, you get a tertiary alcohol. Now we will see this mechanism, that how is this happening. Now look over here, the Grignard reagents, they are organomagnesium compounds that act as a nucleophile. Nucleophile means they love to donate electrons. So this makes them perfect for attacking the electrophilic carbon in the carbonyl groups. Now one by one we will see. So the carbonyl group, which is C double bond O, is polar. Okay, we know that it is polar. So the carbonyl carbon is electrophilic in nature and the oxygen has a negative charge. Because oxygen is more electronegative, it pulls the electron density, which increases the electrophilicity of the carbonyl carbon. Now Grignard reagent has the form RMGX. So the bond is polar. Okay, so it reacts like a carb anion. So strong nucleophile and MgX, it acts as an electrophile. So when the Grignard reagent, which has a negatively charged carbon, it approaches the carbonyl carbon, so it attacks that carbonyl carbon. We know that RMGX bond is polar, so the R, it gets a partial negative charge, and MgX, which is a metal, so it has an electropositive nature, so it gets a partial positive charge. So this R now, where will it attack? This R, which acts as a nucleophile, or I can say it acts as a carb anion, it reacts on the electrophilic carbon. So the carbonyl, so as the Grignard reagent, it attacks, the pi bond between the carbon and oxygen breaks and the electron move towards the oxygen. So if you look at this particular diagram, you will see R, which has a partial negative charge, and Mg, which has a partial positive charge. So R will attack on this carbonyl carbon, so the electrons will shift towards oxygen, and oxygen has a negative charge. So if you look at this adduct carefully, you will see that R gets attached to the carbon and MgX gets attached to the oxygen, because oxygen is negatively charged. So Mg is positively charged. So MgX gets attached to the oxygen. So it results in an alkoxide intermediate. Okay, and when you do the aqueous workup of this alkoxide, it yields final product, which is an alcohol. So this steps involves adding water to the reaction, which converts the alkoxide into the stable alcohol. So if you see over here, water, it has OH negative and H plus. So H plus gets attached to this oxygen, which forms an alcohol, and here you get MgOHX. Okay, so simply remember that this R, which has a negative charge, gets attached to the carbon, and MgX gets attached to the oxygen. You get an adduct, and then this you reacted with water. So this O negative so the H plus get attached to this O negative, and you get an alcohol and MgOHX. So now we are going to study the addition of alcohols. So alcohol adds to the carbonyl group of aldehydes and ketones. And for this, they need dry HCl as a catalyst. Now, what happens when acid protonates oxygen of the carbonyl group? So the lone pairs on oxygen of alcohol, they attacks the carbonyl carbon. Okay, so there is lots of H plus, which gives hemiacetals. So addition of aldehyde results in hemiacetals. If you look at this particular image, you will see this is an aldehyde. When you treat it with an alcohol or in presence of HCl gas, you get a hemiacetal. Now we will discuss this mechanism in upcoming slide. For now, you see that this is an aldehyde. When you react it with an alcohol in presence of HCl, you get a hemiacetal. Okay, so hemiacetal, if you see over here, to this carbon, one OR group is attached and one OH group is attached. Okay. And in contrast, when alcohol adds to a ketone, the product is hemiketal. So addition of aldehydes, it results in hemiacetals. To the same carbon, the OR group and OH group is attached, and addition of ketones result in hemiketals. So hemiketal is same, which means it is half of acetal. Hemiacetal is half of acetal. It is also hemiketal is also half of acetal, but the difference is that here we are starting with ketone. So if you see here starting with a ketone, when you react with alcohol in the presence of a HCl, dry HCl, you will see you get a hemiketal. That is, to this carbon, a OR group is attached and one OH group is attached. So this is hemiketal. Now I told you that for this you need a dry HCl. So what is the role of dry HCl? So the role of dry HCl is that it acts as a catalyst by protonating the oxygen of carbonyl carbon. We will see now in the reaction that in the mechanism that it acts as a catalyst which protonates the oxygen of carbonyl carbon. So it makes the carbon more electrophilic. So if the carbon becomes more electrophilic, it will be easier for alcohol to attack. So now we will see the mechanism. So first, we will see this process is acid catalyzed. So this process is acid catalyzed, meaning an acid helps you to speed up the reaction. Now one by one, see all these steps. First step of the mechanism, the acid catalyst, it protonates the oxygen atom in the carbonyl group. Okay, so if you see over here, this is aldehyde. So the acid, it will protonate the oxygen. This means that the acid donates a hydrogen ion to the oxygen, which makes the carbonyl carbon more susceptible to attack. So this oxygen of carbonyl carbon gets protonated. So this is the first step. Second step is that the lone pair on oxygen atom of the alcohol, it attacks the carbonyl carbon. Now we have an alcohol. In alcohol, oxygen has lone pairs. So oxygen with its lone pair will attack the carbonyl carbon. So this breaks C double bond O and the oxygen becomes neutral. So this will break this double bond and the oxygen will become neutral. Okay, so you will see you will get this intermediate. So finally there is loss of hydrogen ion or H plus from this intermediate. So if you see here to this oxygen, this ROH, okay, this gets attached. There is one OH group and there this alcohol gets attached. Okay, so you will see that there is loss of H plus from this intermediate, which will lead to the formation of hemiacetal. So this oxygen has a positive charge. Oxygen never loves a positive charge. So there will be loss of this H plus ion and finally you will get an hemiacetal. So this is a stable product where the alcohol and carbonyl compound, they have successfully combined. So if you see hemiacetal, to this carbon, OR group is attached and OH group is attached. So this was the mechanism. Now we will discuss the formation of acetal or ketone. Earlier we saw hemiacetal. Hemiacetal, when you react aldehyde with alcohol in presence of HCl, you get hemiacetal. And when you react ketone in presence of alcohol with dry HCl, you get hemiketal. Now we will see the formation of acetal or ketone. So when a hemiacetal reacts with another equivalent of alcohol, it yields an acetal. Similarly, when a hemiketal reacts with another equivalent of alcohol, it forms a ketone. So hemiacetal As I told you, it reacts with another equivalent of alcohol to yield a ketone. Okay, so if you look over here, this is a hemiacetal, okay, with the OR group and OH group attached to same carbon. When you treat it with another equivalent of alcohol, you see you will get a acetal. Acetal, that to the same carbon, two OR groups are attached. This is acetal and water is being released. Similarly, hemiketal reacts with another equivalent of alcohol and you get a ketal. So look at this image. It is a hemiketal. When you react with another equivalent of alcohol, you get a ketal. That is, to the same carbon, two OR groups get attached and water is released. Now we will see the mechanism of this formation of acetal and ketal. So if you look at this mechanism, one by one we will discuss all the steps. First one is the protonation of hydroxy group of hemiacetal. So first, the OH group, which is the hydroxy group of hemiacetal, it gets protonated. So protonation simply means adding a hydrogen ion or H plus ion to the molecules. Now you see in the first step, this OH hydroxyl group gets protonated. So now we will see that there will be loss of water through elimination. Okay, so water will leave. So there will be loss of water through elimination, which forms an unstable and highly reactive oxonium ion. So you will see when the water will release, now this H2O plus becomes a good leaving group. So what will happen? The water will release and you will see you will get an unstable oxonium ion. Okay. Now following the formation of oxonium ion, an alcohol molecule adds to it. So if you see over here, you have an alcohol molecule and this alcohol molecule adds to this unstable oxonium ion. So finally, the reaction concludes with the loss of proton. Finally, you will see there will be loss of one proton resulting in the formation of an acetals. Okay, so finally you will see there's loss of this hydrogen and you will finally get an acetal. So these are the 4 steps. First step, that this oxygen is getting protonated, this water gets leave and you get an unstable oxonium ion. And this alcohol in which oxygen has lone pairs, it attacks on this carbon and you see this alcohol gets attached. Okay, and then there is finally the loss of this proton and this proton gives you an acetal. So now we will see about the formation of cyclic acetal. So in the cyclic acetal, when ketone, it reacts with ethylene glycol. Ethylene glycol is a type of diol. So when ketone reacts with ethylene glycol in the presence of dry HCl, they form a cyclic ketal. Okay. Now, the product of this reaction is an ethylene glycol ketal. So, finally, you get a product as ethylene glycol ketal, which is a cyclic ketal. So, if I compare cyclic acetal or ketal or acyclic acetal or ketal, I can say that the cyclic ketal and acetal, they are more stable than the acyclic ones. Why? Can you think of the reason? See, because cyclic acetal or ketals, they form 5 or 6 member rings and these rings are strain free. So this property makes them valuable in protecting the sensitive functional group during the reaction. So they protect the sensitive functional group when the reaction is proceeding. So if you look at this reaction, you have a carbonyl group over here. That is you have a ketone. When you react a ketone with ethylene glycol, which is CH2OH, CH2OH, which is type of a diol, when you react it with in presence of HCl gas, you see you get a ethylene glycol ketal and water is released. See, look at this cyclic structure. This is a cyclic ketal. That is ethylene glycol ketal. Now, one important feature of acetals and ketals is that they can be hydrolyzed back to their original aldehydes and ketones. So, this ethylene glycol ketal, it can be hydrolyzed back to their original aldehydes and ketones. Okay, and how you will do this? This is done using aqueous mineral acids which break this cyclic structure. So, if you use acid mineral aqueous mineral acid. This will break the cyclic structure of ethylene glycol ketal and you will get your ketone back. Now we will discuss another type of nucleophilic addition reaction, which is addition of ammonia and its derivative. So ammonia, which is NH3, and its derivative, which is represented as H2NZ, they are a very excellent nucleophiles. Okay, so if they are good nucleophiles, they have strong tendency to donate a pair of electrons. And how they donate? Because we know that on nitrogen there are lone pairs. So there are lone pairs on the nitrogen, so that is why they act as excellent nucleophiles. So because of the presence of lone pair on the nitrogen atom. Now what happens when ammonia or its derivative, they react with carbonyl compound, they initially form a hemiaminal intermediate. I repeat, when ammonia or a derivative, they react with a carbonyl compound, they form an intermediate which is hemiaminal. Okay, so what is hemiaminal? Hemiaminal when the same carbon is bonded to one OH group and one NR2, that is amine or substituted amine. So one carbon will be bonded to one OH group and one amine or substituted amine. Now this hemiaminal, which is the intermediate, is quite unstable and it quickly undergoes dehydration. Dehydration, it loses a water molecule and it finally forms an imine. Okay, in imine it is a compound in which there is carbon double bond nitrogen, which is attached to a Z group. So the Z group, so this is finally the imine, which is C double bond N and a Z. So the Z group in this reaction, they can vary widely. Okay, it can include alkyl, aryl, OH, NH2, C6H5NH or NHCO, NH2, etc. Okay, so each of these groups, they can influence the reaction's outcome. So if you look at this particular reaction, you have a carbonyl group. When you react it with ammonia or derivatives of ammonia in presence of a catalyst, which is H+, in presence of a catalyst, you get an intermediate. And this intermediate is hemiaminal. So see, to the same carbon, one OH group is attached and one NHZ is attached. And this intermediate is quite unstable. Further, there is rapid dehydration of this intermediate and you finally get an imine and water is being released. Now, it is important to note that this reaction is reversible and it is typically catalyzed by an acid. Okay, so the acid basically helps you to speed up the reaction. So, what is the work of the catalyst? That it helps you to speed up the reaction. But despite being reversible, as I told you, it is reversible. So, despite being reversible, the equilibrium of this reaction tends to favor the formation of imine product. Now, because it is reversible, it can go back also. But this reaction tends to favor the formation of imine product. Why? Because the imine is more stable than the intermediate. If I talk about this intermediate, which is hemiaminal, it is quite unstable. But imine is quite stable. So, this is because imine is quite stable, the equilibrium tends to favor the formation of imine product. So now we will see with an example. If you see at this example, so you will see this is an benzaldehyde, which is an aldehyde, and it reacts with ammonia or a derivative in the presence of an acid. You get an intermediate, which is hemiaminal intermediate. And further, there is loss of water. It undergoes dehydration and it forms a stable amine, which is C double bond N over here. Okay. So if I look about the mechanism, then first step is that the amine, which is a nucleophile, attacks the carbonyl carbon. Okay, so this results in the formation of hemiaminal intermediate. So as we see, this hemiaminal intermediate is not the final product. It undergoes further changes. Okay, so if you look at this step, you will see that this nitrogen, the lone pair on this amine, it attacks the electrophilic carbonyl carbon. Okay, so when it attacks the electrophilic carbonyl carbon, this breaks the pi bond of carbonyl and pushes the electron density onto oxygen. So see, nitrogen will donate its lone pair and this double bond will break and oxygen will get a negative charge and you will get an tetrahedral intermediate. Okay, now what will happen in this tetrahedral intermediate? Now see, this nitrogen has a positive charge, okay, because it is forming 1, 2, 3, 4 bonds, and oxygen has a negative charge. So now this negatively charged oxygen, it picks up a proton and it becomes OH, and positively charged nitrogen loses a proton. So oxygen picks up a proton and a nitrogen loses a proton, and you get an intermediate which is hemiaminal intermediate. So now what happens next in step 2? This intermediate in the previous step which we got, it undergoes acid catalyzed dehydration. So if you look at this diagram, you see you have a hemiaminal. So the OH of hemiaminal, it gets protonated. Okay, so it gets protonated, so it converts OH into OH2 plus. Now this OH2 plus is a good leaving group. Okay, so this protonated OH group, it leaves as H2O, and it generates a carbocation like intermediate. And that carbocation like intermediate, it is stabilized by the nitrogen lone pair called the iminium ion. So if you see over here, when this OH2 leave, you will get this carbocation intermediate. Okay, and this carbocation intermediate, it is stabilized by the nitrogen lone pair, and this is called the iminium ion. And further, this iminium ion, you will see this will lose a proton from the nitrogen, and it will give you a final product which is called imine. So this is the step 2, which is acid catalyzed dehydration of intermediate, which results in imine. Now if you look at this particular table, here are some substituted derivatives of aldehydes and ketones. Okay, so these derivatives are formed when ammonia or a derivative, they react with the carbonyl group, which results in the formation of C double bond NZ structure. So you can look over here, this Z, it can be H, so the reagent name will be ammonia, so this derivative will be C double bond NZ, and the final product which you get is imine. Similarly, you can see all of this N substituted derivatives. Now, there is 2,4-dinitrophenylhydrazine, which is 2,4-DNP. So, this reagent is a derivative of ammonia. It is commonly used in laboratories to test the presence of carbonyl groups in aldehydes and ketones. Okay, so this 2,4-DNPH reagent, which is a derivative of ammonia, it is used to check the presence of carbonyl groups in aldehydes and ketones. Okay, so this 2,4-DNPH is also known as Brady's reagent. If you look at this example, so you will see that is this 2,4-dinitrophenylhydrazine. This is the hydrazine group, and 1, 2, 3, 4. On second and fourth position, we have a nitro group. So this is 2,4-dinitro. This is also known as Brady's reagent. So you need to remember this name. So 2,4-DNPH is specifically used to detect the carbonyl groups, and how the carbonyl groups are characterized. They're characterized by carbon double bond oxidation. But the carbon is double bonded to oxygen. Now this reagent is used in a qualitative test to identify aldehydes and ketones. This means it helps us determine whether these compounds are present without measuring their exact amounts. So when 2,4-DNPH, it reacts with aldehydes and ketones, it forms 2,4-dinitrophenylhydrazone derivatives. What it forms? Hydrazone derivatives. Okay, and these derivatives, they are solid compounds that precipitate out of the solution. So as I told you, they precipitate out of the solution. So there is a brightly colored precipitate. So precipitate is formed which is brightly colored, ranging from yellow, orange or red, which makes it easier to observe. Okay. So now this is an example of 2,4-DNPH. So this is a condensation reaction which occurs by the loss of water. So this is acetophenol. When you see when you treat it with 2,4-DNPH, there is loss of water, and finally you get a hydrazone, that is acetophenol 2,4-dinitrophenylhydrazone. Okay, so the precipitate form, it is brightly colored, ranging from yellow to red, which confirms the presence of a carbonyl group. Okay, and one more information, that this alcohol esters, and carboxylic acid do not give this test. Alcohol, esters, and carboxylic acid do not give this 2,4-DNPH test. Okay, so this is the acetophenone. When you tried with D4-NPH test, you will get the acetophenone 2,4-dinitrophenylhydrazone. And this is an orange-red crystalline solid. Now we will talk about the reduction of aldehydes and ketones. So aldehydes and ketones, they can be reduced to alcohols. And they can be reduced to hydrocarbons. Okay. Now one by one we will see how it is reduced to alcohols and hydrocarbons. So first one we will focus the reduction of aldehydes and ketones. So it is reduced to alcohols using reducing agents. Now what reducing agents you can use? The first one is sodium borohydride. Okay, so if you have to the aldehydes and ketones, can be reduced to alcohols. If you have to reduce alcohols to aldehydes and ketones, you can use sodium borohydride. This is a milder reducing agent. Okay, it selectively reduces aldehydes and ketones without affecting other functional groups. Second one is lithium aluminum hydride, that is LiAlH4. And now this lithium aluminum hydride is a much stronger reducing agent. Sodium borohydride is a milder reducing agent, but this LiAlH4 is a quite stronger reducing agent. Okay, so aldehydes, they are reduced to primary alcohols. Okay, so remember, aldehydes are reduced to primary alcohols. This means the carbon atom bonded to the oxygen in an aldehyde is now bonded to a hydroxyl group and two hydrogen atoms. So if you look over here, you will see this is an aldehyde. Okay, when you treat it with NaBH4, which is a mild reducing agent, it will reduce it to primary alcohol. Primary alcohol, the carbon to which an OH group is connected is further connected by one carbon only. Okay, so this is aldehydes reduced to primary alcohol. So if you look at the example, this is a benzaldehyde, which is a primary aldehyde. Okay, when you treat it with sodium borohydride, you get a benzyl alcohol, and this benzyl alcohol is also a primary alcohol because the carbon to which an OH group is attached is further connected by one carbon atom only. So this is benzyl alcohol. In benzyl alcohol, what happens? The carbon to which an OH group is attached is directly attached to a benzene ring. Similarly, we can see ketones are reduced to secondary alcohols. If you see over here, you have a ketone. When you treat it with NaBH4, which is a mild reducing agent, you get a secondary alcohol because the carbon to which an OH group is attached is further connected by two carbon. So it is a secondary alcohol. Example, if you take acetone, which is a secondary if you take a acetone, which is a ketone, when you treat it with NaBH4, which is sodium borohydride, you get a propane 2-ol. Now this propane 2-ol is also a secondary alcohol. Okay, because you see that this carbon to which an OH group is attached is further connected to two methyl groups. So this is a secondary carbon. So aldehydes are reduced to primary alcohols and ketones are reduced to secondary alcohol. Now, catalytic hydrogenation is another method which is used for the reduction of alcohols. So, in this, you use a catalyst to help the hydrogen molecule adds to the compound. So, hydrogen gas, which is H2, is used as a so hydrogen gas in the presence of a metal catalyst, it is used as a reducing agent. Okay, so the addition of hydrogen atom occurs across the carbonyl group, which is C double bond O group. Now, the common metal catalysts which are used in this process is nickel, palladium, platinum. Okay, so this helps to speed up the reaction without getting consumed in the reaction. Now, what happens? Aldehydes, they are again reduced to primary alcohols. Okay, so if you look at this aldehyde, when you do the catalytic hydrogenation of this aldehyde in presence of a catalyst, metal catalyst, which is palladium, you see you get a primary alcohol. Okay, so what you see, you get a primary alcohol. So this is the H2 gets, there is addition of H2. So in catalytic hydrogen, you will see that H2 is used as a reducing agent. Okay. So this is another method of reduction of alcohol. So aldehyde get reduced to primary alcohol by catalytic hydrogenation in presence of a metal catalyst. And ketones are reduced to secondary alcohols. If you see, this is a ketone, okay, and it is reduced to a secondary alcohol. Now, aldehydes and ketones can be reduced to their corresponding hydrocarbons by following methods. First method is Clemmensen reduction, and second method is Wolff-Kishner reduction. Okay, now one by one we will see what is this Clemmensen reduction and Wolff-Kishner reduction. First, we will talk about Clemmensen reduction. So, Clemmensen reduction is a process where the carbonyl group is converted into a methylene group. Methylene group where a carbon atom is bonded to two hydrogen. So, in Clemmensen reduction, this carbonyl group is reduced to a methylene group. Now, to perform this Clemmensen reduction, we use zinc amalgam. So, zinc amalgam in which zinc is mixed with mercury and concentrated hydrochloric acid. So, this combination creates a strongly acidic environment which is necessary for the reaction to proceed. So, the reaction medium is strongly acidic, which is crucial for the Clemmensen reduction to work effectively. Okay, so this acidic condition, it helps in breaking the carbon-oxygen double bond and replacing it with hydrogen atom. Okay, if we move further, if you look at this reaction, this is a carbonyl group. When you treat it with zinc amalgam in the presence of acid, which is hydrochloric acid, you see this carbonyl group get reduced to a methylene group. Okay, reduced to CH2 plus water is being released. Examples, this is a benzophenone. So benzophenone is a compound with two phenyl groups which is attached to the carbonyl group, and this is reduced to diphenylmethane. Okay, so you will see that this C double bond O is reduced to CH2 group. So this transformation involves removing the oxygen and adding the hydrogen atoms. So you will see there are hydrogen atoms are being added and oxygen is removed. Similarly, if you see butane aldehyde, which is a simple aldehyde with 4 carbon chain, is reduced to butane. That is, this oxygen gets reduced to a simple 4 carbon chain, which is butane. Okay, so this is the Clemmensen reduction. So this reaction shows how the carbonyl group is completely removed, resulting in a saturated hydrocarbon. Now, the Clemmensen reduction is a powerful tool, okay, in organic chemistry for reducing carbonyl groups to methylene groups. However, its use is limited by the presence of acid-sensitive group. Okay, so it is not suitable if acid-sensitive functional groups they are present. Now we will see Wolff-Kishner reduction. In Wolff-Kishner reduction, what happens in this, that the carbonyl group of aldehydes and ketones that is reduced to methylene group. Same, okay? So this is like you're transforming a double bonded oxygen into a pair of hydrogen atoms. Now, earlier in that case, we use Zn zinc amalgam, ZnHg and HCl. So here we are using hydrazine. Okay, so this involves treating the compound with hydrazine, which is NH2NH2. So this hydrazine is a very strong reducing agent. So this is followed by heating with a strong base like NaOH or KOH, which facilitates the reaction. So in the earlier case, Clemmensen reduction, we see that there was a acidic medium, but here we will see there's a strongly basic medium. Okay, this is important because the basic condition helps to drive the reaction forward. Now, the high boiling point solvents such as ethylene glycol, diethylene glycol or DMSO, they are used in this reaction. So this solvent, they can withstand the high temperature which is required for the Wolff-Kishner reduction without evaporating, which ensures the reaction proceeds smoothly. So this reaction requires heating at very high temperature, okay, which provides the energy to break carbon oxygen double bond and form new carbon hydrogen bonds. So if you look at this reaction, you have a carbonyl group. When you treat it with hydrazine you see you get a hydrazone, okay, and in strongly basic medium, this hydrazone is then deprotonated and undergoes rearrangement when it is heated, and there is elimination of N2 gas and you get this methylene. Okay, so this is initially starting with the hydrazine. When you treat it, initially starting with the carbonyl group, when you treat it with the hydrazine, okay, you get a hydrazone, and when it is further treated with the base, it undergoes rearrangement and you get a methylene group. Example, if you see there is pentane 2-on, which is a ketone. It is converted into pentane, which is a simple alkane. So the carbonyl group in pentane 2-on, it is reduced to methylene group, which results in the simple hydrocarbon chain. Now, it is not suitable if base-sensitive functional groups are present. Why? Because strongly basic and high temperature condition, it can hydrolyze, decompose, or rearrange these groups like alkyl halides or esters, which could lead to the unwanted side reactions. Okay, and we have to avoid these side reactions. So, it is not suitable if base-sensitive functional groups are present. Now, students, we will summarize whatever we have studied in today's lecture. So, we will see that the carbonyl group is electron deficient and it undergoes nucleophilic attack. Now, aldehydes are more reactive than ketones because of steric hindrance factor and electronic factors. Next, aromatic aldehydes, they are less reactive than aliphatic aldehydes, okay, because of the resonance effect. Now, we will see HCN addition. HCN addition, it forms cyanohydrins, okay, like there is a carbonyl group. When you treat it with HCN, you get a cyanohydrin. Similarly, NaHSO3 addition, it forms bisulfite addition compounds. Okay, if you look at this reaction, you will see there is bisulfite addition compound. Similarly, this is Grignard reagent. Grignard reagent addition, they form alcohols. Okay, when you react a carbonyl compound with RMgX, you get an alcohol. Okay, now forms when alcohol addition, it forms hemiacetals and hemiketals, and on further reaction they form acetals or ketals. Okay, so look at this particular reaction which is showing you this. First, when this is a carbonyl group, when you react it with alcohol, you get a hemiacetal or hemiketal, and when you react this hemiacetal or hemiketal further with another molecule of alcohol, you get a ketal or acetal. And ammonia derivative addition, we see that it forms imines. Okay, so this is the reaction which shows that it forms imines. Then we talked about reduction reactions. To reduce it to alcohols, we use NaBH4 and LiLH4, or there is catalytic hydrogenation. So this shows the reaction. And next we talked about if you have to reduce it to hydrocarbons, we use Clemenson reduction or Wolff-Kirshner reduction. In Clemenson reduction, we use ZnHg in presence of HCl. There is a acidic medium, and Wolff-Kirshner, we use NH2NH2, which is hydrazine, in presence of a basic medium, which is KOH. Thank you, students, for attending this lecture. I hope the concepts which we have discussed are clear to you. Hope you all have a good day. Thank you.